G'day. Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Matt and Steve again today.
Hang on. Where's Jeff gone?
I'm not sure. So basically, Jeff's having to adult. So there's a whole heap of adult stuff apparently involved in this business as well that is requires his attention.
I know.
I cannot get involved in the adult stuff, so we're here to play.
Yeah, we're here to play.
And today we're doing scary dairy.
Oh, jeez.
Scary dairy, quite contrary.
It is quite contrary, actually. It's very scary today. We're talking about dairy, and you know what worries me is I still go into supermarkets and see it everywhere. See litres of it all over the place.
That's because we're told we have to have it.
Yeah,
that actually spun me out this morning when we were having a little bit of a chat about doses and that sort of stuff, and saying if you have this much, it's okay, this much is bad. And then I was going, man, that's crazy. No one would drink that much. And then you actually said, no, that's the government recommendation. Yeah. We're told we have to have, 600 mils a day or something
2 serves
of
of dairy, which is 2 cups of milk or 600 mils. You know those, look, I'm from Victoria and I'm old. We used to have Big M milks, which were chocolate milk or strawberry. I used to have the chocolate one. And now it's 600 mil.
Yeah, right.
And you just have one of those. And that was on top of your Wheat Bix for milk or, for breakfast or whatever else. This was just your standard drink you had throughout the day.
See, let's take a step back. So today we're talking about dairy.
Dairy, yeah.
Now, I got a couple of people get mad at me recently where we sell a beef collagen that's dairy-free. Yeah. And they had a go at me saying that's misleading. You can't sell beef collagen that's dairy-free. And I had to explain to them that dairy is actually the milk.
Yes.
Okay, so dairy is a place where a dairy farm is a place where they collect milk. It might be from cows, it could be sheep, goats, humans, if it was socially acceptable. Would probably be a much better industry. We should look into that.
Well, I have looked into breasts, and
you're not referring to Google image searches, are you?
Oh yeah, that was this morning. I just needed a bit of a pep up.
So dairy is boob milk.
Yes.
From various animals.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about today, but we're probably going to pick on cows a lot more because that's the main one. But we will talk about when they get told not to have cow's milk, they should move on to goat, and when that sort of stuff is appropriate and that sort of thing.
And you had some props for this demonstration, but Brooklyn stole it.
Yeah, she took away my stress ball boob. Because she thought it might be distracting, the fact that I continually play with it. It's cool. I take it into most meetings now. And I even put it in my center console for when I'm stuck in traffic. I just tweak it a little.
Just tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. But so today, when we talk about dairy, we're going to talk about why it's good for you, when it's good for you, the benefits of it. We're going to talk about allergies and intolerances, and there is a difference between allergies and intolerances. We're going to talk about raw milk, cooked milk, processed milk, cultured milk, cheeses, yogurts, that sort of stuff. And when it's good, when it's bad, some of the weird peculiarities that we see.
Yes.
That's a silly word. I'm not going to say peculiarities again.
Peculiarities.
And then we're going to go through all that sort of stuff, and we're going to help people that want to use milk work out the best way to do it. For those that were looking for an alternative to milk but still want to get all those health benefits that they recommend, there's got to be a reason why they're telling us to drink a certain amount of milk every day.
Well, I've got a study here showing you that milk's healthy for you.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm going to talk to you about that later if you want.
Well, they're probably the people that told us we're supposed to drink a lot of it.
Well, it might be. You never know. Could be. But, there's a lot of information there on dairy, and there's a lot of data showing its effects on the human body because we drink a lot of it as humans. We're obsessed with another animal's secretions for some reason.
Well, let's look at it. Okay, so let's start with this. Okay, so we're born.
We're born.
All right. And then our mum makes milk.
Yeah, of course she does.
All right, so mum makes milk. Typically, we get that milk for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
When we're born, are we born with the enzyme lactase?
Yes, we are.
And a certain amount.
Yeah, and because you got to remember, human milk has lactase as well, or lactose.
Lactose.
The sugar, yeah.
So the sugar in milk is lactose.
Yes.
Now the sugar in all milk is lactose.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter if it's a sheep or a goat or a cow or a human.
Yes.
Okay. So the lactose comes in. We have. I've got to get these hands down. We keep talking about boobs lately. Yeah. My hands keep flying around. So what we're looking at is this lactose comes. I did it again. As soon as the lactose comes out, my boob hands come out. So basically, we need so when we're born, we have breast milk. So we're born sterile. I got to do something with my hands.
It's not going to come across on video too well when you do that.
No, the podcast people don't even know what I normally do. But yeah, so basically the point is we have breast milk for a variety of reasons. It's got growth factors. It's got nutrients that we're born with a leaky gut wall. We're born sterile and that sort of stuff until we get a mouthful of bugs on the way through. The immune system, the breast milk contains immune cells from mum. It contains chemical messengers of immune cells that control allergies, inflammation, that sort of stuff. It contains the growth factors for the microbiome. It contains growth factors for the gut wall. It contains growth factors for us.
Yes.
In fact, the one of the main purposes of breast milk is to stimulate growth and grow things. And we've got enough lactase in us to digest the lactose in our breast milk for a certain period of time.
Yep.
Typically enough until the breast milk runs out or stops at 3, 6, 12 months, 2 years. I mean, seriously, if you're still doing when the kids go to school, I think it's a bit weird.
Yeah, that is.
When they can ask for nip. Hey, mum, gives a bit of nip. That's when it's time to stop.
I know that's bad in those school assemblies, isn't it?
Well, Steve, you're not supposed to be doing it anywhere.
Right, okay.
Yeah, don't even you worry about you in a school assembly. It's just never appropriate for you to be breastfeeding a child.
No, not with these boobs, useless things.
Yeah, they got nothing.
Nothing.
So basically, we have breast milk from mum for a particular reason, for a particular period of time.
Yep.
And then that breast milk runs out. The enzyme that digests that breast milk also runs out.
Yep.
And then what?
Well, we grow teeth when we start eating food.
Yep.
But the big $1 million question is, where do we turn from mum's milk to another animal's milk?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do we go from...
And that's the bit that's confused me, let alone for it to be compulsory policy, where people are told you have to do it this way or you've got to consume a certain amount because your mum's breast milk's run out. That was made for you, designed for you, and now that's gone. We're now going to steal the milk from another animal, and in particular cow, because they're the most productive.
Yes.
Why? Why are we told to do that?
Okay. Well, the reason why we're told, if you look at cow's milk and analyse it, it's got protein in it.
Yep.
It's got minerals in it, particularly calcium.
Yep.
So it's a liquid, and you kind of look at it and go, well, protein, calcium, humans need that stuff. So let's have, and that's the simplified version that we were told in the 80s and 70s. Right. And of course, those things build your bones, and you need them for healthy bones. This is why we're told to drink cow's milk. And it's convenient. It's easy.
Does it work? Does it work for bone?
Well, there was a study on that with regard to hip replacements. Yeah. It was done in Melbourne, actually. And I've got it in the notes here, so it'll be on the internet, whatever it is, to show you this. And it was done about 38,000 people were tested on this. And they found a correlation with the adults, or the elderly, that drank more cow's milk had the worst hips and required the most surgeries.
So it doesn't work?
No.
There's a couple of reasons for that, hey. Yeah. So we're looking at, there's other parts of the world where they've got the highest consumers of dairy in the world. They've got the actual highest rates of hip fractures and that sort of stuff as well. And they're warned that, you've got to not have too many carotenoids. Because if you take too much cheeses and concentrated dairies, especially if they got good colour in them, then you're basically going to get too much vitamin A, and that can strip calcium out of the bones.
Yeah, it can, yeah.
Yeah.
And vitamin D antagonises that, so you want to be having some vitamin D in your diet as well. And vitamin D's in cow's milk. That's another reason why they tell you to drink it.
Oh, that's right. It is too. I forgot about that. Calcium and vitamin D. That's the whole reason why we have that combo.
It's not like you can just go outside and get it from, say, the sun hitting you or something weird like that. You can't get vitamin D that way. So
yeah, well, it's, that's why they've got it in their milk, huh?
Yeah.
Because they eat grass as a great source of calcium and that sort of stuff, and then they actually get the sunlight while they're doing it. So maybe we should do that and get better bones.
Look,
weight bearing.
Just run around naked for a while. You get sun on you, That'll be all right. Just don't run around. Maybe that'll be a bit bouncy, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Don't want to think about that.
So when I was a kid, I had real bad asthma and eczema. So when I was really young, I started getting real bad asthma and eczema for various reasons. We made a link that we felt cow's milk was making it significantly worse.
Yes.
And mainly, even if you're not allergic to it, milk's always mucus forming. So when you get colds and flus and phlegmy chest, we typically cut back on milk because it's going to make mucus, and that mucus is going to get infected, and that's how you get this vicious cycle.
That's right.
So what they did in those days is they said, he's obviously reacting badly to this cow's milk. they switched me over to goat's milk.
Oh.
Now, with goat's milk, it's the same amount of lactose, and it was the lactose that was making the phlegm. It's the lactose making me sick, so it made absolutely no difference. My asthma kept going to the point that I needed to medicate it, okay, where they put me on such things as prednisones and that sort of stuff to treat the asthma and eczema that was flaring up from my dairy. The end result of that as a young age is I end up with Sherman's disease. Sherman's disease is actually a form of osteoporosis in young people where you get brittle bones and that sort of stuff.
So you need to drink more dairy, don't you?
Yeah, that's the big problem. So the dairy was creating an inflammatory reaction in my body. The inflammation breaks down the bone, and the medication to treat that inflammation also significantly broke down the bone. So this effort to increase the calcium intake through dairy significantly resulted in a significant reduction in the quality of my bone. Now, the reason why I'm telling that story is not because I think I'm cool and it's a great story, but, maybe.
It's a cool story.
Yeah, it's a cool story. And I'm kind of cool. And so, we'll tell these stories regularly now that Jeff's not here to police it.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically... it's very important to understand the causes of osteoporosis and treat those sort of things. It's not just calcium deficiency. So when you're looking at the recommendations of dairy for calcium, is it really a good source of calcium?
No, not really, because of the problems associated. The side effects.
Yep.
Okay, we'll call it, like if you had green vegetables, the side effects is you get healthier. If you have dairy, one of the side effects for dairy is cancer. Unfortunately, that's a pretty savage side effect. There was a study done fairly recently on gastric cancer, and they found that basically whole milk consumption may be directly associated with cancer mortality, and that's for gut cancers. So that's very, very scary. This was a study done on gastric cancer, and of course it was only published December last year.
Yeah, right.
So gastric cancer increases when you drink cow's milk. So it's because of the casein, destroying your gut, basically.
And what about other cancers?
Oh, plenty of them. Prostate cancer is the biggie.
Yeah.
Prostate cancer is huge when it comes to drinking cow's milk. It's very, very scary.
Yeah.
In conclusion, whole milk consumption after prostate cancer diagnosis was associated with increased risk of reoccurrence, particularly among very overweight and elderly men and obese men. And it also initiates the cancers as well.
Yeah. What's it do?
What it does is you touched on it before about supplying the genes and the growth factor. Well, cow's milk contains messenger RNA, ribose nucleic acid, in other words. So it tells the genes how to act.
Yeah, right.
And what we know about cow's milk is it tells genes to express oncogenes or cancer genes, suppresses P53, which is a gatekeeper.
Apoptosis.
Which induces apoptosis.
Which is apoptosis self-destruct mechanism.
Exactly.
You're a dodgy cell, get the hell out of here.
Exactly. And cow's milk switches that off.
Yeah, wow.
So does smoking. Smoking knocks out P53.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what's more dangerous. Well, I believe, and then I'm going to sound controversial here, that I think cow's milk is possibly more dangerous than smoking. And let me say why. I'm not saying it's worse for you then.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, and maybe not our listeners, but a lot of people think cow's milk is good for you, don't they?
Yes.
No one thinks smoking is good for you.
Yeah, good point.
So it's kind of like they can make an informed choice and say...
Because they go against their intuition. Yeah. Like even if cow's milk... Because like I said, with my story with my mum, and she knew that it was making me sick, but she was so convinced that she needs to get that milk coming in because of that need for the calcium.
Yeah. And when people say, oh, Steve, you don't drink cow's milk, they say, what do you do for your bones? And I said, I eat food for my bones. I'm not. Don't run around and suck on another cow's udder for my bones. I exercise. I get vitamin D. I get calcium from nuts and seeds and legumes.
And it's calcium carbonate that's in milk too, hey, which is probably, 10% bioavailability?
It's not very well absorbed.
But, I mean, if you're calcium deficient, you will absorb it.
Yeah.
And I tell you where calcium carbonate's actually really good is binding to oxalates and that sort of stuff and stripping it out. Some people build up these particular oxalates in their body, and what it does in your body is oxalates in your bloodstream will take calcium out of your blood, or take it out of your blood, and then as your calcium in your blood drops, it'll take it out of your bone.
No, absolutely.
So sometimes the way that we can see this association with a higher calcium carbonate consumption and a reduction in bone loss, it never shows an increase in bone production, but a reduction in bone loss.
Yes.
Sometimes that's in those people that are predisposed to a higher oxalate.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people that have got kidney stones, if you get arthritis and weird arthritic conditions, or you can do test and see your oxalic acids. Or if you're one of those people that take spinach and sweet potatoes, berries and cherries and get sore, then the calcium carbonate binds to those, makes a crystal in your bowel and strips it out, as opposed to binding to it in your blood and putting a crystal in your kidney. That's one way calcium carbonate helps to stop calcium leaching from bone. But the problem is if you're getting that calcium carbonate from milk and you're overloading on the carotenoids and these, and the casein, I believe, has a link in there as well. With, but I don't. But that's a bit of a weird one because they talked about pH changes from the excessive protein, which doesn't actually happen in reality. Hey, so
no.
I think so. That calcium bit's interesting. The vitamin D does help, but when they've done all these studies on calcium and vitamin D, it never shows significant reduction in osteoporosis. It often shows an increase in fracture risk, increase in brittleness in bones.
And now the problem I have with the whole cow's milk thing, let's assume for 1 second it's good for the bones. Let's just assume one thing. It's kind of like the fluoride thing. I'll get on that. But basically, if you assume that it's good for the bones and you drink it based on that one piece of evidence that it's good for the bones, you ignore this other biochemistry here that shows that it causes cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, this is pretty... Oh, we'll get a close-up. Look at this. Yeah. This is the biochemistry, and I'm going to put this on the website, so don't try and take notes here madly. But this is a diagram. You can see the messenger RNA in cow's milk blocking the P53, which means you get cancer. So pretty scary stuff there. And this is the problem that we have, is that we only tend to look on one aspect of health, and the classic one's fluoride. Let's say this water, and it's not, but let's say it's full of fluoride, and I drink it. It washes past my teeth, and let's assume that topical fluoride's good for your teeth. Let's assume that. What do I do after I put the water in my mouth? I drink it.
Yeah.
So fluoride in here is bad.
Yes.
It has no biochemical... No one will argue with that. But if you just look at one aspect of the health of it, it's good for your teeth, you ignore the rest of the body, you're in trouble.
Have you seen the recent stats on dental health in Australia?
No.
Somewhere 40 to 60% of adults now have dental caries. Remember? So what we used to do is have this big initiatives about dental hygiene, and then they decided to cut $35 million out of the budget, apparently in Queensland alone, to, that they used to do for school dental programs and dental awareness campaigns because they invested that money into fluoride. Now we've all got rotten teeth because people aren't doing it. And while you're talking about fluoride, this is just a bit off topic. The biggest problem with fluoride is a thing called skeletal fluorosis that occurs in typically the elderly because they're getting a higher dose of fluoride than anyone because they typically, no, I shouldn't stereotype too much, but they don't always buy the gourmet water like we buy here. They'll take it more likely out of the tap.
Yes.
They also drink a lot of tea. And tea concentrates the fluoride, and the best natural source of fluoride is tea, Ceylon tea. So they're getting all this extra fluoride, and then they're also the same people buying the calcium carbonate supplements following the milk, so they get this build-up. The fluoride in the bone makes it brittle, adds all the calcium onto the outsides of the bones instead of incorporating it inside, and they get osteophytes and spikes and spurs and horrible pain.
Jeez.
So the calcium bit is a bit...
bit dodgy.
Crappy. Hey, but I tell you, sorry, there's one other cool thing about calcium, though, in milk. Is it does strip out fat. So, when you take that calcium, so with another benefit of milk that they talked about for fat loss was that the extra calcium being... So it's funny, when they talk about bone, they want to talk about the abundance of calcium that gets delivered to your bone. But when they want to talk about milk for fat loss, they want to say the calcium's not absorbed. The calcium actually helps strip out the fat and increases the amount of fat in your feces. And in that instance, what they're saying is the carotenoids that were going into your body giving you benefit, the calcium that was going into your body giving you benefit. Now, when it talks about fat loss, it's all of a sudden the calcium's not absorbed, the carotenoids are not absorbed, it's the fat's all stripped out because of the calcium. So what's the go there? Is that real?
Well, it is. It works like Casein, which is basically stops the absorption of fat, or medically Orostat. By the way, I love the side effects of Orostat, the lipase inhibitor. Or it's what do they call it? Anal seepage is the polite way of saying
anal seepage. Butterbum sounds better than anal seepage.
Does it really?
I don't know.
Let's do a poll on
rectum, all right.
Yeah. I know. It's like, But another link with cancer in cow's milk is it got the messenger RNA, but it also contains high level of IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. And that's a hormone that's used to in petri dishes to grow cancer cells. You give it and it grows cancers dramatically, and it's found in cow's milk. So you're drinking that directly as well. So you get huge amounts of IGF-1, which can cause prostatic, breast cancer, you name it, cancer. And it basically says here, IGF-1 is a potential mechanism underlying the observed association between milk intake and prostate cancer risk. And that was, of course, published 2017 as well. So these are fairly recent studies, but we've known about the nasties of milk for years.
So the other places you can get IGF-1 stimulating cancer is if you eat a high-carb, high-sugar diet.
Yes.
So insulin, like growth factor, is actually a messenger associated with insulin secretion, which is an indication that you've usually had a big dose of sugar and your body's saying use this sugar to grow things.
Yeah.
So basically milk is a growth stimulant. I mean, that's why we have it as babies.
Yeah, there's
and
nothing
the
wrong with
reason why we probably stop is because we probably need to have that accelerated growth when we're young, but not necessarily. It's probably why baby cows even stop.
They do, yeah. Of course they stop drinking cow's milk.
They don't come looking for our milk though, do they?
No, they don't. They don't come and suck on my udder. So, you know, it's pretty weird. I always thought it was pretty weird. And in the olden days, we knew it was bad and all that sort of thing. But there is some pretty bad data on this.
So what's good about it as well? What about the protein?
It's funny you should answer that. I did find a scientific
paper. Did I do
paper.
a segue accidentally then?
You did a brilliant one.
Oh, that's nice.
It showed that there was a study that touted all these wonderful benefits about cow's milk, how it reduces cancers and all this sort of.
Awesome.
And I went, wow, you know, like, and government recommendations, and I went, geez, you know, this is an amazing study. It's really, really cool. It's written by these authors, and I thought, oh, I wonder, let's check out these authors. Well, this first person here, I won't mention their names, but I'll make up a name. Jane Smith is a recipient of research funding from, you ready for it? The Dairy Research Institute of Vermont, Illinois.
Vermont? Why does that sound familiar?
Yeah. We're going to talk about Vermont later and their water supply.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sitting there going, what the hell's the Vermont and dairy? There's something about that.
I was just leading into it. But there was a few other authors. There was Mr. Smith here. He received funding from, guess what? The Global Dairy Platform, Dairy Research Institute, and Dairy Australia. Yeah. Wow. And then there was I almost mentioned his name. Another Mr. Smith is a recipient of research grants from, guess where? You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe
dairy
it.
Guys.
Yep, the Global Dairy Platform. He's a consultant for the Biocompetence Centre of Healthy Dairy Products in Australia.
It's tricky, eh? Like, because honestly, I mean, who else would fund research on dairy other than the Dairy Board? So this is the problem with science. There's always that conflict of interest to a certain degree, and you're really relying on the integrity of the scientist and that sort of stuff to put all that bias and prejudice aside. But you can see interesting patterns. Like there's that other one funded by the dairy mob as well that I was reading about lactose intolerance, and it basically showed that you can correct lactose intolerance if you drink enough milk.
Yes.
It was basically saying that the milk itself will stimulate the growth of bugs that make lactase, which is kind of true. I mean, so when we have the gut, so when we're saying we're born sterile, we get a mouthful of bugs on the way out. Predominantly the birth canal is full of firmicutes, in particular lactobacillus species. They're very dominant through the birth canal. So you get a big dose of these lactobacillus. The lactobacillus helps to fatten you up.
Of course.
Lactobacillus as well, if you get enough of a colony of lactobacillus, you'll make enough lactase. And that lactase will help you to digest lactose. Ongoing, meaning that you can have lactose from other animals if you've got enough lactobacillus living in your tummy. So the thought of fixing lactose intolerance by stimulating a bug to grow inside you to make enough lactase for you to digest it. The problem is that bug, these firmicutes that we're talking about that feed on lactose, actually stimulate growth. And then if you keep doing it, then you get insulin resistance. So in the early days, like you're saying, they do insulin like growth factor and that sort of stuff to stimulate growth. But if you keep doing that, you end up with insulin resistance. And when you get insulin resistance, you get resistant to insulin like growth factor in your muscle, which means you start getting really fat. So we're better off doing our breast milk. Oh, geez, did you see that was a?
Oh, yeah, I did the whole
thing. So we start off with the breast milk, and then at the end of that, we kind of don't need milk.
Yes.
Otherwise, we keep growing, we keep stimulating things. We've got uncontrolled growth. When you talk about cancer, I always create a very simple picture in my mind with cancer. We have a cell cycle that progresses at a normal rate. In that cell cycle, we have checkpoints. And those checkpoints are supposed to say, is this cell doing things right? If it's not doing things right, then we trigger apoptosis, which is a self-destruct mechanism.
Self-destruct pattern.
So when we look at these things and any cancer stuff, it's a battle between growth stimulants that make the cell cycle progress fast, which includes things like IGF-1 and what these other things we talk about, they're called carcinogens.
Yep.
They make cell cycles go fast. And then we offset that with things that activate the checkpoints.
Yeah.
Like we're looking at the apoptosis, but
B53.
also antioxidants and slow it down. So when you see you've got a product that is designed for accelerated growth of your gut wall, accelerated growth of your tissue, for you to go from a little baby to a toddler, you know, that's what it's for. But if you keep doing it, then you get this imbalance between growth stimulants and inhibitors, and that's how we end up with cancer? Is that a simplified...
That's exactly right. But there's other mechanisms that this cause cancer, of course, full of lactose, which is sugar, which feeds cancers. But there are other factors involved.
Well, and the lactose, once it's broken down, it forms glucose and degalactose. And the degalactose is the one that directly stimulates cancer growth and that sort of stuff anyway.
Yes, and glucose provides the food for it.
The fuel for it,
It's just absolutely scary, but it gets even worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it gets worse. There's a protein in cow's milk called casein.
Yeah, but that's good, isn't it? It's a slow release protein for getting you through the evening when you're sleeping and becoming catabolic.
So I've heard. But if you take the casein, you'll get these casomorphin 7s produced, the beta casomorphin 7s, and they drive inflammation in the gut, and inflammation is another cancer promoter.
And they make you cranky, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Because they used to, all the kids that used to come through, we used to take them off it because it makes them cranky and irritable.
Well, it's worse than cranky. There was data showed that these beta casomorphins, and this will be published on the website, actually drive autism.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So kids with autism really need a dairy-free diet, because also dairy is another bad way to ruin your guts.
Yeah, but this also too, just before we move on, that when you say dairy-free diet, what I want people to understand is it takes about 2 weeks for the lactose to clear.
Yes.
But you got to get off dairy for good months or so to see what you feel like with that casein.
Yes.
Because casomorphins can build up into the brain. They can change. Wasn't it 6 weeks or something?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
long
that they change. They change chemistry for about 6 weeks. So. If you think about it, if you've been one of those people that's followed the instructions of the government for a long period of time and that sort of stuff, then you may never... Yeah, I know, you need to listen to the podcast. Just don't tell the government about us. Yeah. But you may never have actually experienced what it feels like to not have casomorphins in your brain. Because you can imagine if dairies come in real early. Is there casein in breast milk, in human breast milk?
There's the A2 casein, which is quite healthy for humans in the early stages. Yes.
Yeah, right. And that's in goat's milk as well. And
goat's milk is higher in whey. So there's whey and casein in milk.
Yeah.
And humans, when they drink the milk, get a lot of them.
Yeah.
And there's problems with all three, really.
But so to feel the benefit of not having casein, to feel the benefit of no lactose, you can basically have a few weeks off and that sort of stuff, and you'll see.
Sugars
That's where the old
down.
elimination diets used to work. A couple of weeks off, if your symptom goes, put it back in, see if you're lactose intolerant, you find out pretty quick. But for casein, we need to do it for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, because the casomorphins are in the brain, and they all sorts of things, and they all cause all sorts of problems with your brain and the way you're thinking, and it becomes quite addictive too. Yeah. So very, very huge problematic for that. Also inflammation of the gut, which causes all sorts of distress.
And people need to realise that there's a link with the gut wall and the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
If you get a leaky gut wall, you got a leaky brain.
Yes.
Or leaky blood-brain barrier.
It does, yeah.
And so it allows these larger things. So gluten is another one. It's even worse if you've got the gluten intolerance and the casein, because that's what first thing we used to do for behavioural stuff in the clinic was get off the gluten, get off the casein, do that for about 3 months and see what sort of things settle off.
Well, it gets scary here because a lot of people get a milk, and first thing in the morning they get a bowl, and guess what they put in the bowl?
What?
They
sugar.
They put sugar.
Yeah.
And they put grains in there.
Oh, yeah. So you get the gluten, you're getting
all the proteins bad from the gluten, all the bad proteins from the milk, like I used to eat as a kid, wheat bix and milk.
Oh, yeah.
This is scary food. This is frankenfood. This is really, you don't hunt down and kill a bowl of wheat. You don't eat from a pasta plant or a bread tree. And all of a sudden
even if you did hunt down a bowl of wheat, you'd be better off than just getting it out of the cupboard, tipping it in a bowl and covering it in milk and sugar.
And remember the wheat bix are 5-star, so a lot of people believe that. Shit.
And then and then you can probably get a couple of your serves of dairy out of the way by overfilling your cup and having a glass of milk or something with it. Which you may as well, no one wants to have a cup of milk with their wheat bix, so we put Milo in it.
Oh yeah, well that's 4.5 stars. Jeez, what a train wreck. So it becomes a real train wreck and a lot of kids eat this.
Now, casein, when someone's got this problem with casein, it's not an allergy, hey, it's an intolerance?
No, it's an intolerance. And it's actually casein forms caseomorphins, which is actually classified as an opioid.
It's true.
Yeah, opioid.
Is it addictive then?
Opioid peptides, yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, from milk. Yeah.
So you'd addict it, you'd crave it.
Yeah,
you'd crave that casein.
Exogenous opioid peptides from milk casein may contribute to the pathogenesis of autism in children.
And it's an excitatory. Hey, it's an excitatory amino acid.
It's an opioid, yeah. It stuffs your brain up.
Yeah, but does it stimulate it or does it block it?
Well, it just stuffs your brain up.
Yeah, it just gets in the way.
Yeah, and causes autism. It actually upregulates dopaminergic production in the brain, and you get downregulation of norepinephrine, so you get
Doesn't have to cause addictions.
Yeah, it does.
Because that's the mechanism behind addictions.
It does.
Wow.
You tell people to go off dairy and they, how do I do that?
Yeah. No, the government said I had to.
Yeah, government said. Do you want to go on to what the government said after all this?
Yeah, please do it, man.
This really... Oh, yeah, no, I'll talk about that later. Yeah, there is a government section here for guidelines. It's absolutely fantastic. And they're Australian guidelines, and I'm reading from these. This is from the Eat for Health Gov website, by the way. The Australian Dietary Guidelines have informed the types, amounts of food, blah, 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 the risk of diseases and cancer. This is their aim. And a quote, evidence suggests Australians need to eat more whole grain cereals, reduced fat milk, yogurt and cheese. That's a quote. After all the bad studies on milk, and I haven't made them up.
So we need more.
Yep. And here it gets worse. The evidence base has strengthened for the association between the consumption of milk and the decreased risk of heart disease and cancer. Decreased
Even
risk.
though all the data's not saying that.
The data's not saying that. The data's saying the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. And this is what worries me, is that people might believe this. And let's say I'm gonna take us back 40 odd years to our childhood. Let's say we go back 40 years and we drink milk. We drink 600 mils, 2 servings of dairy a day. Well, that suppresses testosterone in boys. Testosterone production. Via the suppression of gonadotrophin releasing hormones. So it stuffs up all your hormones, in fact. Yeah, because there's estrogen in cow's milk.
Wow. I'm so glad I'd stopped drinking milk when I was young. That's why I ended up with such a cherry hest.
Yeah, cherry hest. Well, this is
wasn't the crust.
No, this is scary stuff, because if you wouldn't give you a contraceptive pill to a boy, would you?
No.
But you'd give them a glass, or you wouldn't. But some people give their kids milk.
Yeah.
Still to this very day.
Yeah. Lots of people do. We're told we have to.
Exactly. And the scary thing is that's full of estrogen, and it's not added. It's from a cow, a lactating cow.
Yeah.
It's not exactly rocket science, is it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're getting all the hormones from the... Do they pump extra hormones? What's the go?
They need to. They're pregnant.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're genetically bred to be lactating more, which has more.
And so those
hormones.
hormones that stimulate lactation and the growth of breast and boob
prolactin
and stuff like that is all in the milk.
Of course it is. It's naturally found in milk. I don't care if it's homogenized, pasteurized, raw. It's in the milk.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
part of the milk because it's from a cow.
So what? Man, that's wild, hey?
Yeah, it's wild.
So you just mentioned something else, raw milk. So a lot of people talk about raw milk versus the other stuff.
They call it bath milk.
And it's just only because they're not allowed to say it's for human consumption, so you just slap it on the outside.
Because this milk is not pasteurized.
Oh, that was pathetic. That was absolutely terrible.
I just had to visualize it. I just wanted to remember what pasteurized is. A big word.
Oh, mate. Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah, it's pasteurized.
It's pasteurized.
Put that cup back down. And that was water. But no. So basically, so what's interesting, so hang on. So I just mentioned earlier, Steve, you didn't say it was me.
No.
That lactobacillus makes lactase.
Yes.
And without lactase, I don't know if I mentioned this, but without lactase, you get lactose intolerant because you can't digest lactose.
Correct.
Which makes it ferment and creates immune problems. do they have less lactose intolerance in bath? Does bath milk still have lactobacillus in it?
There's more of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it has more of it. It has more of other bugs too.
Because they haven't sterilised it.
They haven't sterilised it. It hasn't been pasteurised.
So it means it's got more of the natural bugs that would ferment and break down that lactose and convert it into lactic acid and allow you to actually not be intolerant to that milk.
Correct.
So bath milk's better?
Well, in 2006 they did a study. It compared normal milk, cow's milk, and bath milk, whatever, was found to be more healthy because it has less allergenic.
Well, was that raw milk? Because I think it's only in Australia that we got this weird restriction that they have to sell it as bath milk because it's for swimming in.
For swimming in. I mean, there is a small fine attached to it.
Little baths because they only sell it like in 2 litres or something.
Well,
it's a little foot bath or something. Anyway,
so there is, if you're in, say, for example, New South Wales, there is a slight fine if you happen to sell, raw milk for consumption, for human consumption. It's just a warning fine, so you don't want to do it. What was it again? It was $275,000.
Now, you mentioned that casein is an opioid peptide.
It is.
If I was to be selling heroin in New South Wales, what happens to me?
Well,
I go through drug rehabilitation program and probably get a payout. So you're serious? You get $275,000 fine.
Yep, if you sell, that's the maximum.
But why?
Why? It's deadly stuff. This milk, it's dangerous. It's
but it could kill you. I mean, now this is what bugs me about this stuff too, because they restrict these sort of things. People do it underground. People are going to do what they're going to do. It's just the nature of the beast. So it's not policing. So while they're doing it in Australia, selling it as bath milk, that means they have to follow the cosmetic laws governed by NICNAS, as opposed to the food laws governed by FSANS, and definitely not at the TGA standards governed by the TGA for these claims that they make as well.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting is you get a cosmetic ingredient making therapeutic claims. That's kind of misleading.
Very.
But if they are not policed, then... Are they doing plate counts? Like, are they testing for, well, E. coli and salmonella will kill you if you get enough of it. I mean...
No, they don't. They just put expiry date on it and that'll be it.
You just do the sniff test?
Yeah, because if you put toxic milk on your feet, for example, the pathogen doesn't cross the skin.
Yeah, no, but people are drinking it.
Oh,
they're buying it as bath milk and drinking it, but it's not being policed as a food.
We're not recommending people drink bath milk, though.
No. Well, I don't.
Yeah,
this is the
I know.
This is the catch. Like we go into bath milk's better for you for these different reasons, but because the government will not endorse it or allow it, it's not policed.
It's not policed.
Which means there's no one making sure there's no E. coli and salmonella in it.
That's right. And so if it's not policed, it goes underground, and it's scary. It's like It's like drugs where they're,
And the problem is too, even people then probably read the expiry date and go, that's a conspiracy too. That's because, and technically with a cosmetic, it's 12 months after opening.
Right, okay.
So it's a cosmetic is fine for a certain amount of uses after opening, or typically 12 months after opening as a cosmetic, which is what a bath milk would be.
Of course it is.
So then it bugs me. They should say, okay, if you're going to condone the use of milk, we should give people the right to be able to use a raw milk and then police it, do a simple plate count, make sure there's no E. coli, salmonella before they put it on the shelves.
Scary
and
stuff.
then educate people that it's a food, not a cosmetic, so the expiry date's real,
Pretty scary. Okay, so if you drink milk as a boy, it says here, sexual maturation of prepubescent children could be affected by the ordinary intake of cow's milk. And that's because the estradiol found in cow's milk and E1. So they're the two most dominant estrogens in milk because it's just found naturally.
It's messed up,
It's messed up. But let's say you're a man. Can you drink
Can you drink man milk?
Man milk? No. Thus, research believe that milk is responsible for, at least in part, some of the male reproductive disorders, like our sperm count dropping dramatically because of the terrible, huge consumption of milk since refrigeration came in.
Yeah, wow. It makes sense. Hey, what about this now in the cans? I mean, the cupboard milks. What are they? They're UHT.
Ultra heat treated.
Yeah.
And they're wrapped in plastics and all that sort of thing, so problematic.
Oh, and plastic with the baddies in the plastic.
Yep.
They're fat soluble. So the fact that milk's got that nice level of fat. So all we do is then drink skim milk.
Well, you see...
how do they make skim milk? They skim the fat off.
Yeah, because they skim it off.
That leaves more sugar, more lactose.
Yep. More of the bad caseins, more of the bad stuff. Although, it's all bad. But the good news is that the good old Heart Foundation and those dudes have told us we've got to eat less full-fat dairy because it's full of saturated fat. However, here's the good news, and there is some good news here.
Oh, good.
Let's take cheese, which is I
love cheese.
Oh, yeah, well, of course we do. Basically, the government says don't eat it because it's full of saturated fat. But what they've found in the evidence, and this is from the Journal of American Medical Association 2016, observational studies on specific dairy products indicate that cheese consumption does not have any adverse effect on heart health and may in fact reduce the risk of coronary artery disease and or stroke.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if the Heart Foundation says don't eat it, you really should go for it. Well,
and if they say eat the low-fat versions instead of the high-fat versions, just don't listen to them. They're crazy fools.
And they've also shown, several randomised controlled trials have shown that cheese, despite its high content of saturated fat, has a neutral, even beneficial effect on total cholesterol and or LDL cholesterol, insulin resistance, etc., and abdominal obesity. So it's absolutely not a problem to have high-fat cheese.
Those French paradox studies also linked cheeses, in particular the hard and the sharp cheeses, to a reduction in cravings and an improvement in satiety by having a cheese at the end of the meal or part of the meal. And they linked that in with that glucagon-like peptide, which works in through the gut and controls satiety to say basically you've had enough fats from the cheese, you can cut back now. If you don't want to use cheese and that sort of stuff for glucagon-like peptide, you can use things like yerba mate tea. That's one of the main mechanisms that it works. A lot of the polyphenol teas, like the green teas and that, they all work on that same thing. In fact, a lot of polyphenols in the diet, like a new gut right product with all these modbiotics. So all the peels and the skins and all that sort of stuff of the fruit and veggies. But also, there is a good way of controlling your GLP-1 in your gut by changing your gut flora to increase Bacteroidetes and drop off lactobacillus. So what's interesting about that is the key is avoiding the lactose again. So the lactose in the cheese, in those the creamy ones like the Brie and the Camembert, they actually stimulate Lactobacillus acidophilus. If you break that lactose down into lactic acid, the acidity increases the growth of the Bacteroidetes as well, and the absence of lactose means that the Lactobacillus aren't thriving. The Bacteroidetes increase, you get a faster metabolism and that sort of stuff. Yeah. There's one study I found that showed, with fatty liver, because when they linked, they always talk about the firmicutes, in particular Lactobacillus and Clostridiums, increase your likelihood of having fatty liver. And if you get any weird liver stuff going, the guys that have got the most amount of Lactobacillus and Clostridium had the worst, fattiest liver. And what it basically boils down to, again, is that lactose. So with the lactose stimulating Lactobacillus acidophilus, it gets worse. But if you're having the hard and sharp cheeses or those yogurts that are really sour and tangy and that sort of stuff, then you're not getting the lactose. You actually seem to get a lot more benefit out of those.
You do, because remember, hard cheeses are very low in lactose, and the casein has been modified or improved by Rennet reaction, which is an enzyme that breaks down the casein, so it becomes a lot safer for high-fat cheeses.
What's that mean again?
Rennet is the enzyme found in cows' guts, which curdle or digest the casein, and it doesn't form the beta-casomorphins. So it's a lot safer for you to have the stuff that the Heart Foundation doesn't recommend you have.
So just quickly, we're talking about, can you explain curds and whey?
Curds and whey?
Yeah.
Well, the curds are there's two parts of cow's milk. Well, there's the whey, which is the stuff that a lot of bodybuilders think. There's some studies on whey in here I didn't mention, but the curds is the curdled part of the casein part, and that's been reacted with enzymes. So you get curds and whey.
Excellent.
Two types of protein. Whey has other problems in the body as well, because it's got issues with it. There was a study done, a long-term study, 2-year study on whey, and it showed to have no benefit after 2 years because the protein consumed by people sort of matched it out. Because whey's got quality proteins, but if you have it as part of a healthy diet, it doesn't really
That's what we always show the studies comparing the different sources of protein supplements to what they call a healthy diet, where they just match up a certain amount of protein from a variety of protein foods. And then in most of the studies, they would say, okay, we'll take out 30 grams of those protein foods, we'll put in 30 grams of whey, and it shows the same.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Hey?
That's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You know, so
But if you're deficient in protein
Yeah.
and you can't eat your protein, then using something like a whey to pick up could actually improve
Yes.
certain things. And that's the time you do dietary supplements. As
Yes.
if the diet is inadequate, you can supplement the diet, whether that's a vitamin or a protein or something, doesn't matter.
Exactly. And of course, you know, unfortunately, the guidelines are telling us not to have the foods of dairy that you possibly can have. Now, the only caveat with hard cheeses is that it's what we call a sticky food. It ends up with bad food. Sometimes people put cheese on biscuits.
Oh, yeah.
Or they put cheese on toast, or they have cheese on pizza.
Yeah.
So if you have cheese and fruit full of polyphenols, then you
Yeah, exactly.
Little
so those fruit
Frenchie,
platters. So
yeah.
if you have your cheese on a piece of apple, like, man, I love blue cheese on apple. I love that. That's the thing I do love. But yeah, so you have it with the fruit and cheese platter.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Steve.
So
I'm
you know,
hungry.
Oh, yum. So it's kind of like an interesting thing, but cow's milk with all those hormones in it, we've got to be careful of that because you don't want to be supplementing with estrogens.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, I don't. No. We get enough of that out of the environment.
No, we
that
don't.
Sort of stuff.
And it's always funny because people talk about soy and it's got phytoestrogens in it.
Yeah.
This has actual estrogens.
Actual estrogen, not just
hormones from a
phytoestrogens.
cow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's crazy when you think about it because people, I don't want to consume a soy protein because it's going to give me boobs. These are the blokes typically would say that.
Yeah.
And then the girls say, yeah, give it to me. And then, I just made that up. They probably don't.
They don't with me at 49.
Yeah, so, no, I meant give me the milk.
Sorry, I
not
thought
just
you meant
trying to give me a Roger and Steve.
Right,
I wasn't
okay,
talking
sorry,
about
I
that. I was saying, give me the milk, just throw it on me. You know?
Yeah.
All of the boobs and they grow. And anyway, what are we talking about? I'm just imagining.
You're thinking about soy.
No, I'm not going to tell you what I was imagining. Let's move on to something else.
You were going to talk about that list you've got in front of you.
Yeah, no, we've been nailing it, Steve.
Oh,
You've
okay,
been
good.
pretty much just...
Because we are nearing the end of it.
Alkaline phosphatase
Oh, yeah,
is
you
the
want to
other
talk about
thing.
that?
So the
Yeah.
other claim to fame behind milk is the inhibition of alkaline phosphatase, which is inflammatory mediator marker,
Yep.
and basically shows that things are going a bit pear-shaped. And that's one of the things that they said is good for reducing. That's why milk is good for you. And it does that by controlling the short-chain fatty acids made by lactobacillus species again.
Yeah.
And they make good levels of butyrates and that sort of stuff. But
Of course it is.
interesting, weird studies they're saying it, and another one's hipporate. But the hipporate's made by Clostridium,
Clostridia,
highly
yeah.
inflammatory. But anyway, if you didn't want milk for your alkaline phosphatase, you could use other things like turmeric, zinc, vitamin D, boswellia, bupleurum. I've got a couple: garlic, asahi, rosemary, cinnamon, mushrooms, bananas. All those sort of things can also do the same sort of thing. So a big variety of healthy fruit and vegetables, nuts and seeds.
That don't give you cancer.
Yeah, they don't give you cancers. They kind of things could work.
Well, absolutely. And it is pretty scary that we're unfortunately relying on cow's milk for weird things like calcium and that sort of
and
thing.
estrogen. Hey, so wait a minute. So you got estrogen in it because they're lactating and all that sort of stuff. They're also eating grass.
Yeah.
They'll be picking up all sorts of glyphosates and roundups because most of the lawn everywhere soil is now full of the bloody stuff. So is that, what's the Vermont? Tell me the Ben and Jerry's there. Because I stirred up Mick Galley this morning and said we're actually, as part of ATP Science, getting involved in the Ben and Jerry protest. And no one's allowed to consume Ben and Jerry. Mick said something horrible about it's not true. And
it's not true, no.
Just
Well,
angry,
actually,
hating people.
There is a protest on the 22nd of March. You're not supposed to have any Ben and Jerry's because there's
Why Ben and
glyphosate.
Jerry's?
Well, because there's glyphosate in their dairy. And it's in every
Unilever is
dairy.
their milk supplier.
Yeah.
So Unilever, the manufacturer, Unilever. So Ben and Jerry, they sound like nice guys. They make great ice cream.
Know 'em well.
My other mates, Willie and Wonka. They seem like cool guys. I mean, is it their fault or what's happening here?
No, they just get milk from a big supplier that's got glyphosate in it because milk has a lot of glyphosate in it. It's another negative thing of it. But
and they're poisoning some waterways with glyphosate.
Yeah, because the waste from the production of the thing is poisoning the waterways with glyphosate. But so is everyone else.
And that's so it's not boycotting Ben and Jerry's. It's boycotting dairy.
Well, they're picking on Ben and Jerry's because it's in their product, but it's probably in every.
It's
product.
in all of their.
Yeah, I know.
So you got to avoid. So if you're going to have a dummy spit and say avoid something, then just talk about dairy in general. Talk about things like Unilever. You don't pick on those brands.
Boycott dairy. I have for years.
I actually don't even like Ben and Jerry's. Chalky, horrible stuff.
Where's Mick? See, Mick's a big guy, by the way. For those who don't know, his body.
Yeah, but he's angry. That's a big thing.
Oh, he's big muscles.
He's angry about
tats.
Ben and Jerry's, but you know, it's chalky. I can't think of anything else. I've actually never had it, but I think I've had it once or something. It was kind of chalky. But anyway, don't pick on Ben and Jerry's. Avoid dairy in general, because this whole glyphosate industry, you know, with this stuff going through the cows is terrible.
So it's now 49 minutes. We've got to sort of sum this up now. So basically, there's studies showing that there's risk factors with prostate cancer, breast cancer, and all that because of the dairy consumption, or you could be one of the 2/3 of Australians that are intolerant to dairy, or one of the 60% of people who are lactose intolerant on top of that, or you could be avoiding dairy due to hormonal changes in your body, or you could be avoiding it due to other...
So the time and place to use it is if you're a baby and your mum puts a ditty in your mouth, it's made for you.
Yes.
Just do that. Do what you're told, babies. Just take that. You love it. And then when it runs out or when it stops and you get teeth and all that sort of stuff, then... you don't need to be taking it from another animal.
Yeah.
So the other time is if you're a baby cow, then you can have some of mum's milk. Yeah. Baby goat can have some of mum's milk.
Even they get kicked off cow's milk.
Exactly.
Even the calves get kicked off cow's milk eventually.
Isn't possum milk the closest to human milk?
I haven't tried that one.
I'm not talking about taste-wise. No, I'm talking biochemical pathways.
No, it is. It's pretty good.
You got to lure it in with a carrot. I've worked that out.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, that's kind of cool. You got anything else you want to say about this milk? Because it sounds like you're a big fan.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. Look, I'm not out for banning it. I don't mind if you drink milk, but I want people to know the truth about it.
Yeah.
And then
it sounds better if you ferment it into a tangy yogurt, or if you make it into a hard and sharp cheeses. Yeah. It sounds like you've processed out a lot of the caseins that were bad. You've changed out a lot of the lactose. You're still getting as a good source of protein and that sort of stuff in that instance. Right, still got some carotenoids and it's got some good calcium that might stop the fat from being absorbed, the carotenoids from being absorbed, and the calcium from being absorbed. So it's got calcium that stops the calcium absorption.
Oh, no.
And oxalates.
It's a train wreck. But the fact of the matter is, as long as people know about it, they can choose to do it. Like they can choose smoking, they can choose bungee jumping, whatever the heck they want, as long as they're informed. And this sort of stuff from our government is falsely telling us this stuff is healthy, and it's not. There's studies
about hydrolyzed wheys and that. Because what about people that get the milk and then process it into a powder, like hydrolyzed for baby formulas or for sports supplements?
It's less allergenic, but it can still have lactose in it. It can still have hormones in it. You know, it depends
so whey protein concentrate might have up to about 5% lactose. Yeah. A whey protein isolate is supposed to be less than 1%. Yeah. A hydrolyzed whey is supposed to have none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to read the labels and that sort of thing, because it's up to
most people do a blend, and that's the problem. Is they're blending the hydrolyzed one with the peptide the isolate and the concentrate, and the concentrate with the lactose gives that creaminess. Yeah. So they tend to give you a higher blend of that to give that nice tasting cream.
And you know what? If you want to drink coffee in your milk in your coffee and that sort of, don't write in and say, but a little bit all right. A little bit is still bad for you. It's just not as bad as a lot.
What about cream? Because there's no lactose in cream as such, or there's much less.
But it's fat, so you get concentrate of the fat-soluble agents like the hormones.
Yep. And what about sour cream, just while I got you?
Sour cream's a lot better because it deactivates some of the nasties in there.
And that's natural lactobacillus just breaking down the lactose. It just hasn't gone all the way to yogurt.
Hasn't got all the way to yogurt.
Yeah.
So it's anything's better than drinking cow's milk.
Yeah.
And if you have...
Well, it's straight from the cow.
Well, that's the raw milk. It's slightly better.
And you've also then run the risk of getting trampled on.
Yes.
So Jeff came in the other day and says he's been pissing like a racehorse. And I said, what, down in the paddock on all fours? Well, he said he sleeps like the baby. Sleeps like a baby. I said, what, do you wake up with a poo in your pants and a tit in your mouth?
Well, there's worse ways to wake up, isn't there? You know, the old days of Muso sleeping on the bank.
Now I don't start those stories.
Those stories are terrible.
All right. Let's do it.
Well, look, that's it. That's all. That's all we've got time for anyway.
All right. Well, that's it. We're running out of time. That's goodbye from him and hooroo from me.
Yes. You guys have a great day, and I'll press pause on this, and bye for now.
Hooroo.